first to investigative journalist Art Harris. Art, if they are saying Ron Cummings must testify for the state, is that basically saying they don't believe Ron is involved in his daughter's disappearance? Because how could he testify against himself?
That's right, Jane. He is their strongest suit right now, and has made a deal to testify in the future at anybody's trial and to keep providing information as needed. So he is not a suspect right now.
Ron Cummings reportedly called Misty Crosland dozens of times the night little Haley disappeared, but he never got a hold of her. Listen to an exchange that occurred right here on Issues just last night.
Ron dialed the home, Misty's number, 90 times that night. What was he worried about? He knew what went down.
Exactly.
Wow, he dialed it 90 times that night. Yes, I seem to remember that. That is bizarre. Why would he do that before the child went missing?
Because he knew what was going on.
All right, Art Harris, why would Ron call Misty 90 times in one night, in particular on the night Haley disappeared, in particular before the child was reported missing while he was still at work?
Remember, Jane, she had just gotten back from this wild revenge weekend of drug, sex, rock and roll, and he wanted to check up on her and didn't know.
90 times?
That's what I reported on artharris.com, more than 98 times to be precise.
I'm sorry, I got to say something. I don't buy it. First of all, let me go back to Art. Do you know he called 90 times? I mean, do you have information from cops or your sources?
Jane, I reported that from sources very close to the investigation about a month or so ago, and it was 98 times, I was told. Now,
98 times over how many hours?
Over a very few. Well, it was about an hour or two.
Before the child was reported missing,
correct.
Before that infamous 911 call.
She did not pick up. Later she said to a relative that her phone wasn't working. But,
yeah, but you know what, Art? I just want to get to this point. Flo Hollers, you are Misty Crosland's grandmother.
Yes.
I've never called anybody 98 times for any reason, maybe over the course of a month and a half, but not over the course of an hour and a half, and that happening right before something as momentous as a child being abducted. What do you, Flo, make of these 98 calls that Art Harris claims cops told him Ron made from his workplace to Misty the night the child went missing, before the child was reported missing?
I think he had something to do with it. I think he knew what was going down.
Well, you've never said that before.
I've never been asked that before.
Well, I know that Art Harris has wonderful sources, but I have not heard that from law enforcement, and I don't believe that there's been any official count of phone calls or otherwise, and I wouldn't expect there to be any release of information by law enforcement confirming or denying any phone calls were made. But I find it hard to believe there were 98 phone calls in any period of time.
Art, do you want to respond to that?
I can just tell you that's what my sources are telling me, and I feel comfortable that with their accuracy. However, if you think about their relationship, Jane, and what led up to this. Remember, 4 days before, Ron had kicked her out. She took off with her friend Nene Pravat, and they went off partying with Greg Page and came back that Sunday. Now, my sources say they were up all night talking and working through whatever issues they had, and then the next morning, that's why Haley was late for school. They overslept, why he was speeding out of the neighborhood, and one parent said he almost ran over some kids at a stop sign there. So this is something that led up to that next night, Monday night, when Misty is home alone, does not want to be there. Remember, she tried to get Teresa Nevis to babysit.
But to say that he's not a suspect, I have to disagree with Art. State attorneys and prosecutors are always cutting deals with people that are involved, maybe to a lesser degree, but that's the nature of the game. They cut deals with people because they need certain gaps of evidence filled. So just because he did a plea agreement and he's willing to testify against others doesn't mean that there isn't some responsibility on his part criminally. They may have already cut a deal with him for that. So he still may be a suspect.
There's one other possibility, Jane, that they want him to feel, and this is what some theories, overconfident, so that he thinks he's in the clear and something trips him up. But I'm telling you, he is not considered a suspect according to my sources.
Art Harris, this has got to be the ultimate squeeze play to try to get Misty and Ron to finally spill the whole story.
That's right, Jane, and Jim Werder told me something interesting the other day, and that is he believes that the state attorney, in coming down hard on Tommy, threatening him with lethal injection, which some of the cops discussed with him while he was in jail before Werder drew the line in the sand, he thinks that he may have shut off the oil well of information, that these people are bubbling up with tidbits here and there, and more could be revealed if they weren't facing the barrel of a gun, as it were.
And I understand, speaking of guns, Art Harris, you have some new information about Misty and a gun?
That's right. Misty had slept with a gun under her pillow that Ron gave her to protect herself from just such intruders, but it was not under the pillow that night. To her attorney, who I interviewed, and what happened to those guns? Ron took them out of the house. The guns are at the heart of their alibi, and that is that...
Okay, first of all, okay, go ahead, finish.
And the machine gun that he kept in the closet that he showed to Tommy and Joe a week earlier, they were drinking beer, and he really loved his guns. He had a gun fetish. A lot of his ex-wives say he would put a gun in his mouth and play Ronald Roulette. But here he wanted that gun. Joe wanted to steal that gun, and it wasn't there. All right, I got it.
Flo Hollers, did you know that Misty, your granddaughter, slept with a gun under her pillow?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about that. Why?
I really can't say why. All I know is she says she had to sleep with a gun in under her head every night in case anybody came in to shoot them.
Why would somebody come in?
And she said, Flo, I believe you told me that she said she would have shot Joe that night if she'd had the gun, but she didn't have it.
Yes, she did.
So Misty told you that she would have shot Joe that night?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if it's relevant or not, but what is with the bandage that was on Ron's neck in the beginning of all this?
Interesting point, Art Harris. We got some video of him with that.
I can tell you that that the other injury, I don't know about the neck, but I know his knuckles were bloody and bruised, and that was from punching the wall at his trailer. He was so angry. That has been confirmed by law enforcement. The neck, I don't know, but you know, he's got a lot of scrapes and bruises.
Was the child dead or alive? When did the child? What happened to the child?
Jane, I can tell you what Tommy told his private investigator who works with Jim. He says that he was strangled inside the trailer by Joe. And he has reason to believe that that happened. And there's time that you can, if you listen, compare Misty's story when she said she heard screams, and then suddenly the screams stopped. She heard the house door slam, and then the car door slam. She recognized that van because she'd ridden in it.
Werder, who is here with us tonight, and the way I left it is, when the little girl was taken out of the house, according to this scenario, was she already dead?
Well, Jane, what I can see is that Tommy said she wasn't moving. She seemed to be lifeless. He didn't have any first-hand knowledge as to whether she was actually dead or not. She was in the back seat. She was quiet, again, unmoving. To give you a clinical answer, I can't do that.
Well, what happened then?
Jane, I can tell you what happened.
Okay, Art, go ahead.
Well, according to, speaking to Jim, his investigators and others who spoken to Tommy, they rode down to the St. Johns River. Tommy says he's high on Xanax. He doesn't actually get out of the van, he claims, head in the hands, while Joe takes the body down to the dock. Claims he doesn't see the body go in, but Joe took the body and threw Haley in the river. And we believe from what Grandma Flo says, tied her down with a cinder block and yellow rope. Yellow rope that I've reported on artharris.com. A similar rope was found at his house. Investigators went over there. His soon-to-be ex-wife, Lindsay Crosland, let them in, and they found yellow rope that was similar to the rope that Flo described them using. I had dinner, actually, with Ron, Jane, at a little restaurant called Mima's down there, and asked him the same thing. How could you be with a woman in that circumstance?
Quick answer, 5 seconds.
He said, you keep your friends close and your enemies closer.